This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Hey yo, who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here. The Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next up in the series. Now, had someone win just the other day and not use the phrase next, and so it is imperative that you make sure you have the two components necessary to get your team up next in the series. Some examples would be Chiefs next, Kansas City next, KC next, next KC, next Chiefs. Want to be as efficient as possible. Again, very competitive exercise. No need in being too wordy like Kansas City Chiefs. That takes too long to put in, and of course the phrase next. But that takes too long when you can just put in KC next, okay? Do it as fast, as efficient, and most importantly, first. Now you gotta have the components necessary, but in any event, next team up in the series, you guessed it, the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is a team that has had a strange offseason, to say the least. They trade up in the draft and select a guy that we're going to talk about here in a second, in Patrick Mahomes, when Alex Smith just came off of a really good season statistically and led this team to the AFC divisional round in the postseason. And so wasn't really expecting the Chiefs to go that hard over a quarterback. They just signed Alex Smith to a long-term deal. Seems like a year or two ago, but that's nor here nor there. The big news out of KC of late is the firing of general manager John Dorsey, which came as a surprise to many. We knew about some of his, let's call it, disorganization after, you know, things were kind of shuffled up, and some of his guys that he entrusted in that really kept things nice, neat, and in order in Kansas City moved on and got jobs themselves, most notably the new GM in Indianapolis. And so because of that, things behind the scenes seem to be falling apart. We didn't see it on the outside, but things inside the building weren't as clean as they had been in the past. And so all of a sudden now, we hear about the situation with the releasing of wide receiver Jeremy Maclin, and how that wasn't the cleanest process. And then all of a sudden now, John Dorsey is gone, and you bring in a new general manager, and really you're just kind of promoting from within. But bottom line is, the draft was already done. You were already preparing for training camp when the news comes out of Dorsey being released. And so this is an odd situation for the Chiefs, but nonetheless, this is an organization that you feel like they're going to keep things intact. Love Andy Reid and what he brings to the table. He may not be the best game manager, especially with the clock. However, Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in terms, I call him Coach Camouflage. He's one of the best coaches in the league at adapting what he does to the talents and skill sets of his players. And I think some of these selections that you see in this draft are indicative of what Andy Reid has done best throughout the course of his career. And so I have no doubts in my mind that the Chiefs will continue to be successful as an organization, despite seeming a little bit dysfunctional on the outside. with this surprise move. Let's jump into their draft though, because it was a concise, compact draft, which I don't have a problem with. You get in, you get out, you get the players that you're looking for, and you don't look back. And I look at this draft and I say, they got some good football players, and I want to talk about them. We start in the first round, 10th overall selection. Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes is the selection. This is a guy that I broke down in the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Patrick Mahomes and other players that I was able to get to prior to the draft, that's where you'll have to go in the playlist section on the Louie T Network 2017 Draft Prospects 101 series. But I'm not going to break him down here because I did it there. I will say this, however, Patrick Mahomes is a unique talent. One of the most unique talents in this particular draft class. His arm is unquestioned. His ability is second to none in this draft. It's all about him adapting to the NFL game and maybe scaling back on some of the risks that he took at Texas Tech. They played in a spread offense. I think Andy Reid is going to do a really good job of kind of giving him some things that make him comfortable. We don't know when he's going to play. Look, you got Alex Smith right now. Patrick Mahomes is not going to start the season. Now, will Alex Smith get injured? Okay, like he did last year when Nicholas Foles had to come in? I don't know. That could be a situation that you may have to approach. And we've seen Alex Smith go down and another quarterback who was drafted take his job in the past. It could be deja vu all over again. Obviously, the Chiefs have a plan and a place in mind for Patrick Mahomes on this football team as to when he should be able to take over the reins. Just don't know when that's going to be, but make no mistake about it, this guy's talented and it's the right coaching staff. Andy Reid is the best at adapting what he calls in his West Coast frame of mind and way of calling games into what the player is best at doing. And I think this is a perfect fit for Patrick Mahomes. Even though I didn't see it coming on draft day, I knew someone was going to take Patrick Mahomes. Someone was going to fall in love with the arm talent and the person and the player that is Patrick Mahomes. I didn't know that team was going to be the Chiefs all the way back at like 27, trading all the way up to 10 to do so. But in any event, this is a really intriguing selection here. I'm anxious to see how the Chiefs use him and when, most importantly, when the Chiefs decide to pull the trigger and put him into the game. Will it be because of injury or will it be because they feel like it's his time? And that could be next season. That could be some point this season. Who knows? I'm anxious. All I know is in the first round, 10th overall pick, Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes is hit hard. He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes! It's a home run for the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round with the selection of quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Look, I've said this on record numerous times. Kansas City Chiefs fans have ripped me to shreds, especially the ones who love Alex Smith, and I don't have a problem with Captain Check down. I don't have a problem with Alex Smith, aka Captain Checkdown. The problem is, I don't think that you can win a Super Bowl unless you have a top-notch defense with Alex Smith as your quarterback. I think you saw that last year, and look, I'm not blaming Alex Smith for the loss last year, but you got to be able to score more. What was it? What the final score ended up being? Like 15-9, 16-10? You got to be able to score more points than that if you want to win games, especially in the playoffs. I just feel like there's a ceiling with Alex Smith as your quarterback, and if you want to win a Super Bowl, and I think you can win with a guy like Alex. You're just gonna have to have an elite defense. I thought the Chiefs' defense was really good last year, but it wasn't elite because Justin Houston wasn't himself with the injuries. You're gonna need an elite defense to win with an Alex Smith. You get a guy like Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback position, you may not need an elite defense to win, and I think that's what the Chiefs see, and that's why they make this selection of Patrick Mahomes. As we go to the second round, 59th pick overall, Villanova defensive end Tano Passanio is the selection. The first pro is, this guy's a physical freak. And Mike Mayock said something that stuck out to me at the draft. He was talking to a defensive coach for a team. And he said, look, man, this is the type of guy, you see him get off the bus and you feel like he should be the 0 pick in the draft. And I just said to myself, wow. You know, I chuckled, I laughed, and I said, wow, not the first pick in the draft, but the 0 pick in the draft. And when you see this kid, at 6'7", 290 pounds, basically, 36-inch arms. He's a physical specimen, and generally, you're not blessed enough to get in every single line. When God is handing out physical gifts and talents and intellect, you're not usually blessed enough to get into every line. Guys like LeBron James, they have the ability because they got into every single line. They got in the height line. They got in the physical specimen line in terms of speed, and they got in size, and they got in the intellect line. They were able to get into every single line that allowed them to excel. And Tano Passanio, to me, is one of those guys that he got into every single line, okay? He's a double major at Villanova in finance and business. And so this guy is one of those players that maybe football isn't his first love or isn't the ultimate goal for him. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But one thing's for sure, he got in the size line, he got in the physicality line, he got in the intellect line, he got in the height line, he got in the athleticism line, he got in basically every line and was blessed. And you don't see this very often. And I question whether this guy has any body fat on him. I can't see much of anything on him. If anything, ounce or two max. But this guy doesn't have too much body fat. This guy is chiseled. He's ridiculous. And I talked about him during the combine. And man, it's impressive to see a guy this big move as well as he does. Speaking of which, the next pro is athleticism, 4'8", 340, 10'6" broad. Keep in mind, folks, we're talking about 6'7", 290. I mean, 4'8", 3 for a 290-pound man is ridiculous. And that's just the type of athlete we're talking about here. And that kind of helps with some of the different things that he brings to the table. He's powerful. That's the next pro. 23 reps of 2 1/4. And again, remember, it's 36-inch arms. Generally, it's harder to press weight that many times when you have longer arms. You have much more ground to cover in terms of extending the bar up. Generally, the guys with shorter arms are the ones pumping it up 30, 35, 40 times. To be 6'7", 36-inch arms, 23 reps, you're doing it. That's strong, and that's strength if we've ever seen it. And that does manifest itself onto the football field. I watched this guy split countless double teams with some quickness, but more importantly, with power. I'm seeing him jack up guys and collapse pockets and force quarterbacks to evade him and their own offensive linemen and have to vacate the pocket and get out and try to make something happen. So he's a guy that is definitely powerful. Explosiveness, I would love to see it more, and I think there's a ceiling on the amount of explosiveness you're going to get out of Tano Passanio. But bottom line is he can get off the line extremely quick, especially if he can start syncing up the snap count, put in some work. He's a little raw. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if he can put it all together, this guy has the makings of a big-time problem at the next level. Large tackle radius, that's self-explanatory. 6'7", 36-inch arms. He doesn't have to be right next to you to get you into his grasp and he casts such a large net. All right, I mean, I watched him grab guys and kind of sling onto their back and pull them down to the ground. It doesn't take much for him to be in a play that an ordinary defender just simply wouldn't be able to get to. Outstanding range. I was impressed with his lateral movement. Watched him against Pitt on a bootleg, and their quarterback, not the worst athlete in the world, okay? Nathan Peterman can move around, and he's rolling out to his left, and Tano Passanio gets away and is able to then chase him down and force him to get rid of the rock. So this guy has some range to him and can move laterally and really chase guys down and use the sideline as an extra defender. Special teams value, this is a guy that at 6'7", 36-inch arms can block kicks and was really good at Villanova at doing such. So that's something else you expect him to be asked and called upon to do at the next level, similar to Margus Hunt, who was selected by the Cincinnati Bengals about 3 years ago in the draft as another big, rangy, long defender. And finally, upside. This guy at his best season of his career in 2016, and you're expecting and really hoping that he builds upon that confidence gained in 2016 and then becomes the player that a lot of people look at his body type and say that he can become. 11 sacks, 21 and a half, tackles for loss. He was huge and instrumental in Villanova competing big time in the CIAA or CIAA conference. And so I'm expecting this guy to get better. He was dominant in the CAA, and I think he's going to continue to get better and better and better. And this is a guy that I look at and I say to myself, if he's coached up properly, and Bob Sutton is going to really have some fun with this guy, and whoever his position coach is, they get their hands on this guy and he takes to coaching. And I know this guy's a sponge, very smart. They could have the makings of the next big thing in the National Football League from a defensive line pass rushing standpoint here. And Tano passing, as we go to his cons. He plays upright at times. Obviously, at 6'7", it's going to be hard to win the leverage battle on each and every single snap. That's going to be all but impossible for him to do. I mean, as a 6'7" person, I imagine that the first thing you want to do is stand straight up. I mean, it's natural behavior to just want to come out your stance. The thing you want to do is stay low. Lower man generally wins, but how low can you go at 6'7"? It's hard to stay low out of your stance. And when he does come up high, it does expose the numbers. It does give away pad leverage, and it does allow offensive linemen to get into his chest and his pads and keep him at bay. Level of competition and raw is the next two cons. I'm not going to kill him for level of competition. He dominated the level of competition, which is what you want to see. But him being raw I talked about upside. When there's upside, there's also a rawness element in the fold. And this is a guy that is extremely raw. He doesn't use his length as well as I think he could to help him win and defeat blocks. He needs to use his hands more as a pass rusher. When he did use it, he won, but he doesn't use it enough. There are some technical issues with what he does as a pass rusher. I think he is too content sometimes on just trying to bull rush, and when it doesn't work, just continuing to just kind of sit there with the offensive lineman instead of trying a counter move. So there's so many things that I think he doesn't have any kind of spin or anything of that sort. He's just raw. He doesn't have any plan of action as a pass rusher right now. But again, if he can be coached all of these things, this man could be dangerous. And then finally, a torn MCL in 2014 limited his ability to play at Villanova in 2014. So that's on the Carfax. Thought I'd mention it. But this is a guy here in the second round, 59th overall pick overall, Villanova defensive end. Tano passing, to me is a triple. I'm extraordinarily wowed by what this guy could be. All right, the potential for him is through the roof. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs got themselves a big-time project here. And if they are able to put all of the pieces together to this puzzle, man, could the dividends be overwhelming or what? As we go to the third round, 86th overall pick, Toledo running back Kareem Hunt is the selection. Size at 5'10", 216. This is a guy with good NFL running back size. Athleticism and agility. 36-inch vert shows the explosiveness that he has at times. I think that explosiveness transfers to more of a quick twitch, quickness in and out of cuts, and making those kind of sharp cuts in and out of blocks and setting things up more so than just translating to explosiveness in terms of speed and acceleration. But nonetheless, he's a really good athlete with good agility and the ability to make guys miss out in space. Tremendous vision and jump cut. His vision is top notch. His ability to use the jump cut to set up blocks and cut back inside is outstanding. And he's able to piece together these types of cuts and moves in a very tight quarters, short area. And that really helps him elude defenders, set up blocks, and get extra yards when it seems like there's nothing there. And so that vision pays huge dividends on cutbacks and setting things up, because as a running back, you not only got to see it, but you got to see the next move that's going to precede that. And so he's a guy that it does a lot of those things. He makes a move, and he's able to make cuts and make guys miss and set up his blockers and then cut off of those blocks. He's extraordinary in that regard. Outstanding contact balance. He's one of those guys that I don't know if anyone in this draft at the running back position has as much contact balance as Kareem Hunt. I can't tell you how many times I saw this guy take direct shots and hits that the average to less than average back would go down from, and yet he stays on his feet. And he's a guy that I was just floored and amazed at how often he would take contact and stay on his feet and keep churning forward for extra yardage. The contact balance is outstanding. And he's one of those guys, you need to wrap him up. If you don't, if you think you're just gonna hit him with an aggressive shoulder, you got the wrong guy, and you're gonna look foolish because he's gonna bounce off of you and he's gonna pick up extra yardage. Speaking of which, physicality and forward lean are the next two pros. He's extremely physical as a runner. He's a guy that will lower his shoulder, run into 2-3 defenders, continue to churn the feet, pick up extra yards. I watched this guy churn out yard after contact where I'm thinking to myself, how are you not on the ground by now? It's fun to watch a guy try to get each and every single yard out of each and every single carry. And he plays with a forward lean, one of those guys that you rarely see go backwards on a carry, and that's refreshing to see as well. He's got 3-down back potential in my mind. I look at him as a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he is more than adequate in holding up his own in the pass protection game and element of things. And as a runner, he's dynamic, not in the sense of speed, but just from an ability to make guys miss, set things up, and get yards that don't seem to be there or even blocked for initially upon the snap. So to me, he's got the ability to be a 3-down back, something that the Chiefs have really lacked because of the injuries that they've saw ravage the running back position for them over the last couple of years. So they've had guys to me that I look at as specialty backs. A number of guys, one guy catches it really well, another guy can catch it. Even last year with Spencer Ware could do a little bit of everything, but you didn't feel like he was a game changer at the running back position. Kareem Hunt, I don't know if he has the speed necessarily to be a game changer, but I think he could be a better version of Spencer Ware, if that makes sense to you, as we go to his cons. And I talked about the lack of speed already. Well, the lack of home run speed is the first con. 4.57 speed. And when I watched him on tape, I said, okay, this guy doesn't have true getaway speed. And you could tell just by watching him on tape. I didn't know what the 40 was. And I found out afterwards, and I said, that makes sense. I saw him break away once, and I was like, all right, let me see that next gear. Let me see the next gear. There was no next gear. And so that 4.57 sounds about right. I don't see him running away from anyone at the next level. But like I said, he's going to hit a ton of doubles, the occasional triple, and there are not going to be many singles with this guy toting the rock. And that's what I love about Kareem Hunt. Below average acceleration. Like I said, there was no next gear, but also when he makes these cuts, there's no acceleration to get back to top speed. All right, when he gears down and makes these cuts and these change of directions, there's no, okay, all right, now I got some green grass in front of me and some daylight. Let me shift it back into 5th gear and try to get up to top speed. It just seems like there's no extra gear to get it up quickly. It takes time for him to do that. And so the acceleration, not where you would like it to be for a guy that is as agile as Kareem Hunt. And then finally, 2015 suspension. He missed a few games there and some injuries. His hamstring, his ankle were bothersome for him throughout his collegiate career. So those are just things to keep in mind. Again, those are on the Carfax, and so they bear mentioning. But I mean, I was really impressed with the tape here. 3rd round, 86th overall pick. Toledo running back Kareem Hunt for me is a triple. This guy is ultra impressive, and I think exactly what the Chiefs can use at the running back position. A guy that can tote the rock all 3 downs, do a little bit of everything. To me, the only thing he's missing that would have elevated him to the second or even potentially the first round is speed. If this guy was running a 4.47, we'd be talking about him in the first round, fringe first round, early second round instead of the third round. But because he runs a 4.57, that's why he's sitting here for you to select in the third round. But make no mistake about it, he's a hell of a running back, and I think you got yourself a really good football player in the third round. As we move on to the fourth round, 139th pick overall, Michigan wide receiver J.U. Chesson is the selection. Height, weight, speed specimen, 6'3", 204 pounds, running a 4.47 with 33-inch arms. This guy has everything you're looking for in today's NFL at the wide receiver position. And so, to me, he's a clone of a guy that you already have. It seems like the Chiefs love these types of receivers, these long, athletically gifted guys, which who wouldn't? But they're not as productive as you would like. He's Chris Conley. I think he's a better version of Chris Conley, to be honest with you. But he's Chris Conley all over again. All right? A guy that you select in the mid-rounds, a guy that you like because of his size and his speed and a little bit of the production that you saw from him in college. But he's missing that that it factor. He's got good hands, does J.U. Chesson. I think he's a guy that can pluck the football out of here. Let's couple in this next pro because it goes with these hands. Extended catch radius. He's a guy that will go and get the football away from his frame, and I love that about him. He'll extend. He'll make that wow catch. You got to go back to 2015 if you really want to see the guy that the Chiefs are projecting to get. This is why they spent the fourth round pick on him, because they're looking for J.U. Chesson from 2015, not the guy that we got in 2016. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but the guy in 2015 was an animal. And there were some games where he absolutely shredded the competition. The Indiana game comes to mind, where he had 4 touchdown grabs in that game. I watched him eat Vernon Hargrave III's ass alive in the Citrus Bowl, I believe it was, in 2015 against Florida. I watched him go up against both starting Ohio State corners in Eli Apple and Garyon Conley in 2015 to the tune of 7 grabs for like $113 and a touch. I watched him do these boys, okay, in 2015. So they're looking for the guy that went up and got the football in 2015 and not the guy that was timid and passive aggressive in 2016. He catches it in traffic. This is a guy that will go do the dirty work, catch it in traffic, around 2 defenders, go up, tiptoe the sidelines. He does it all, and I think he has that capability. Adjust well to the football. There's a catch that didn't count against Florida in that Citrus Bowl game that I was referencing from 2015 when he went up against Florida and Vernon Hargraves III, where he catches the football by the sidelines, goes up and grabs it, and contorts his body, almost gets a foot in, but isn't quite able to do so. It was a poorly thrown football, well out of bounds, yet he still came down with it and almost got a foot in it. And that's what he's able to do, contort his body, whether he's got to go low, whether he's got to go high or reach behind him. He's able to go and adjust to a poorly thrown football if need be. Willing to do the dirty work. I referenced this earlier, but he's the guy that will peel off and come back and get a linebacker on a pin down or a blind side or a crackdown block. He's a guy that willing to go seek out a safety. He's the guy that's willing to go over the middle and catch that dig route. He's the guy that's willing to do the dirty work, run blocking. He's willing to do that. He does whatever he needs to do. He's a team first guy. And again, that's something that you got to love about J.U. Chesson as well. Boxes out DBs and shields them away from the football. Again, this is all a part of catching the football in traffic. This is all about doing the dirty work. He doesn't have to be open and separate to catch the football because he does a really good job of using that 6'3", 200-pound frame to shield away defenders from the football. Special teams value is something the Chiefs probably also love with J.U. Chesson, a guy that was among the best on that Michigan roster at going down and fielding punts. One of those guys that blocked punts as well. He did everything in that Ohio State game in 2015, even blocked a punt in that game. So this is a guy that'll do everything as a gunner on special teams, selfless, puts the team before himself. And so you get special teams value with him as well. As we go to his cons. Had a down year in 2016 compared to 2015. I've kind of already talked about that, but just to elaborate, Wilton Speight was his quarterback in 2016, a guy that hadn't played previously for Michigan, versus 2015 with Jake Rudock, who hadn't played previous to 2015. But he seemed to have more of a rapport with Jake Rudock in 2015 than he did with Wilton Speight. Now, I will also throw in this other caveat. They weren't trying to get the football to all these other guys that they had. I felt like they had more guys like McDoom that they were trying to get the football to. Obviously, Jabril Peppers was a huge part of the offense, whether he was in the Wildcat at quarterback or they were trying to get it to him out of the backfield as a running back. It just felt like there were so many different things that they were doing offensively that took away from a guy like J.U. Chesson getting the football. But even that isn't enough to explain the drop-off in terms of receptions and yards. I think they just didn't connect Wilton Speight and J.U. Chesson like he did with Jake Rudock. Nonetheless, they're looking for the 2015 J.U. Chesson. I just thought he was more aggressive as a football player in general in 2015 than he was in 2016. And if they get the 2015 J.U. Chesson, they'll have themselves one whale of a football player. And finally, he injured his knee in that same 2015 bowl game, that Citrus Bowl game versus Florida, that hampered him going into 2016, which may also account for the numbers dropping. There's many things that you can probably point to as an excuse, but that's on the Carfax. Nonetheless, I like J.U. Chesson, but again, the question is, what J.U. Chesson are you getting? 2015 J.U. Chesson, 2016 J.U. Chesson. If you're getting 2015, this is a triple. If you're getting 2016, it's a double, because I don't know the answer to that. In the 4th round, 139th pick overall, Michigan wide receiver J.U. Chesson for me is a double. I think this guy has the potential to be a really quality number 2 wide receiver in this league. And if you get the J.U. Chesson of 2015, that's exactly what he'll turn out to be. If you get the J.U. Chesson of 2016, then he's just another guy at the receiver position that you throw in there and you see what happens with him. So we'll move on to the 5th round, 183rd pick overall. Georgia Southern linebacker Nkeme Aligwe is the pick. And this is a guy that I was impressed with watching him on tape as well. And size is the first pro, 6'2", 239. That's essentially what you're looking for from an inside linebacker. That's really good size. We'll see if he ends up staying inside or if he ends up going to the outside at the next level. But his size is ideal for today's NFL. Athleticism. To go along with that size, this is a guy that's running a 4.57, and I was dying to see him run. I just wanted to see him run, and I got the opportunity. I'm watching him against App State, and they block a extra point attempt, a field goal attempt, and he scoops it up, stiff arms the kicker, and takes off down the sidelines for a 90-yard field goal block return for a touchdown. And you saw the speed on full display. He was running, okay? He was moving. This guy's extremely athletic. And as that game wore on, he was all over the football field making plays. And so this is a guy that, with that athleticism comes closing bursts. He was moving sideline to sideline. He was getting to the ball carrier. He was making plays. He was all over the field. They kept calling his name in that game, and I was very impressed with what I saw. He's willing to take on blockers. There's a gift and a curse to this, but you want a guy that's willing to stand up and take on blockers and not sidestep them and ole blockers, which you get from time to time with some guys. And he's not one of those guys that's going to shy away from contact. But like I said, that could be a gift and a curse. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he's willing to take on that pulling guard that's coming right at him to fill that hole. Understands coverage, and I think he's outstanding and excels in coverage, to be honest with you. Does a really good job of getting depth on his drops, keying quarterbacks' eyes, making plays on the football. Does a really good job in coverage. I watched him in man-to-man coverage in that App State game. I also watched him a little bit versus Ole Miss. I thought he did a solid job on Evan Ingram. It's hard to stay with a guy that runs a 4.4 240, but I thought he did a quality bang-up job of hanging tough in coverage with Evan Ingram man-to-man. So this is a guy that I think is a nice, solid piece to have on your football team, and for no other reason than third downs as a nickel linebacker. So I think this guy can definitely do some special things there from a coverage standpoint, whether you're asking him to do it in man or zone coverage. I think he's a good fit in a 3-4 defense to do that, or in nickel situations. Blitzing capability. They would line him up on the outside. They would move him around. They would blitz him. He's an aggressive blitzer looking to get to the quarterback. Did that well at Georgia Southern, even did that briefly when he was at Florida State. So this is a guy that can get to the quarterback when asked to blitz. And I think that's something else you can tap into with Ukeme Eligwe as you go to his special teams value. This is a guy that at Florida State was one of the best special teams players on their team, led their team in tackles his first year on campus with Florida State before moving over to Georgia Southern. So this is a guy that can give you special teams value right off the bat, right out of the gate. If he's not ready to help you as a linebacker, he can help you on special teams until he gets an opportunity to potentially help you as a linebacker as we move on to his cons. Sometimes he's too willing to engage with offensive linemen. I've talked about him being willing to take on blockers, and that's all fine and dandy, but you also want a guy that's able to make linemen miss or able to shoot a gap too fast for a lineman to get to him. He's one of those guys that sometimes will just stand there and wait. Okay, come on, bring on. I'm embracing contact. Bring it on. You don't want a guy that's sucking up a blocker but getting blocked in the process, because a guy getting blocked generally isn't helping you on a particular play, especially when we start talking about second level defenders. If you're doing your job as that first line of defense by taking up blockers, so be it. That's your job. That's what you need to do. But on the second level, your job is to get to the ball carrier, not to take on blocks necessarily. And he's a guy that sometimes is too eager, too willing to just take on a blocker and not get to the ball carrier. The name of the game is getting players with the football on the ground. And sometimes his first objective isn't get man with ball, but get offensive linemen instead. And that's a problem. Needs to be more instinctual. I think he's one of those guys that sometimes doesn't trust his eyes, wants to make sure that what he's looking at is real. And so because of that, he allows a pulling guard to come around. And instead of him meeting that pulling guard in the hole, that pulling guard is able to get to that second level, 4, 5, 6 yards up the field, make contact, and now that running back has an avenue to exploit. And so you'd love to see him be a little bit more aggressive and attack the line of scrimmage, more tackles for loss, more aggressiveness around the line of scrimmage, and sometimes you just don't get that from Ukeme Eligwe as you would like to see it from him. And then finally, he was dismissed from Florida State in 2014 for conduct detrimental to the team. And so I really don't know what happened there, but in order to be dismissed, it had to be something that either was habitual or something that was egregious. Either way, that's something that you have to delve into if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm pretty sure you vetted him to make this selection. But the size and the athleticism, all of that stuff, this is a guy that is a third round type of player, but the off the field and then the lack of instincts worries you to the point where he's a 5th round pick. So I think you got some good quality here in the 5th round. We'll see if you coach him up and what you get out of him. 5th round, 83rd pick overall. Georgia Southern linebacker Ukeme Eligwe is a double as we get to your final pick in the 2017 NFL draft in the 6th round, 218th pick overall. USC DB Leon McQuay III is the selection. Height and length are his first 2 pros. He's 6'2", got long arms. He's a longer defender. When you see him underneath, he's a guy, I love this guy in underneath coverage. I don't necessarily love him as a deep safety, but I do like him when he is underneath, over the slot, or in underneath coverage. I think he excels when he's asked and called upon to do those things. Good movement skills. Didn't run at the pro day of USC because he was nursing an injury. So I don't actually know his speed and can't actually put a time to what I saw on tape, but he can move well. And so just off of what I saw at SC, I think this is a guy that can move well and is comfortable out on the football field, takes good pursuit angles, even when he's at the safety position deep or coming down to make a tackle. There was a nice tackle in the bowl game versus Penn State. That was an epic, classic showdown there. To me, who's the best running back in college football, Saquon Barkley, as he's cutting across the field. Great tackle, great angle by Leon McQuay III to get him down. If he doesn't get him, he may be off to the races and probably going to score on that play. So takes really good pursuit angles, whether he's attacking the football or attacking a receiver running down the field looking to get to the football. Solid start and underneath defender. I think this is a guy that has a good burst down underneath. He's got a good burst. I love how he starts off his coverage, however. A lot of these guys, they panic. When guys get to the top of their route, the stem of their route, and they start giving you all these shoulder fakes, and they start sticking and giving you double and triple sticks, guys go for that stuff. They start getting off balance. They start opening up their hips. They start panicking. Leon McQuay III is very quiet when all of that is going on. He's just watching you, okay? All right, that's one stick, that's two sticks. Where are you gonna go? Inside or outside? Where do I need to react to? And so does a really good job of not overreacting to a stick, a double stick, or even a triple stick. Staying with receivers, staying in their hip pocket and giving them a chance to be violent with a swipe of the arms or the football. And so I think he does a really good job as that's why I really like him as an underneath defender. He never seems to be out of position. He seems to be where he needs to be on the seam routes, on the out routes, on the in routes, because you know tight ends generally have a 3-4 way go of it. They can stop, they can go inside, they can go outside, or they can keep it up the field on the seam route. So it's tough when you're in the slot. He does a really good job, I think, in the slot. And he has good burst and contest. When he's right there in the hip pocket, he's able to plant drive, go attack the ball, go attack the man, and force incompletions. And so I think, again, this is why I think he could excel as an underneath defender in some nickel packages for the Kansas City Chiefs early on if he's able to make this roster. Not the biggest guy in the world, which we'll talk about as we go to his con size, the first con. He's only 185, so I don't know if they're going to look at him necessarily as a safety or if they're going to bring him in as a nickel corner for them. I don't know, because that size isn't a safety, a typical NFL safety size. So we'll see if they make the transition to just, you're our nickel corner, you're underneath defender. We'll see what happens there. But at a $185, 6'2", really slender frame. He's a little slow to diagnose. He's one of those guys. That's why I don't really trust him at the safety position. He's a guy that I think you can get behind his eyes, sometimes lead him astray. He'll kind of fall in love, go into a lull. Quarterback can kind of put him to sleep. He'll forget about this guy that's running past him on his post, and then he'll get there late. He's a little slow to diagnose what's going on, and I think that's something that may hurt him at the safety position moving forward. And then he misses some tackles. Even though he takes some really good angles, he's one of those guys that'll start up by your waist and slip down to your knee. And if you've got good contact balance, you can kind of jump out of that tackle and he'll just slide off of you. He's one of those guys that doesn't, especially when he's coming at warp speed downhill, not one of the best at breaking down and getting guys on the ground necessarily. He's willing and he's capable, but he doesn't always get the job done. So he can miss some tackles, but I think he's a quality pick in the 6th round. I think this is one of those guys you draft with a specific intent. And I think if I'm the Chiefs, I look at him, my specific intent with Leon McQuay III is I want him as an underneath nickel defender. That's what I look at him as. And in the 6th round, 218th overall selection, USC defensive back, Leon McQuay III for me is a double to round out this Kansas City Chiefs draft in 2017. Very concise, compacted draft. Love what they were able to do. I'm really intrigued by I'm intrigued with their I'm intrigued with their entire draft, to be honest with you. I think I know what Leon McQuay III is. Outside of him, Mahomes, Passanio, Hunt, Chesson, and Aligwe, to me, all have something to prove. All have the ability to be really good, borderline elite players, with the exception of probably Chesson. I think all of the other guys have a chance to be elite players that I just named. And so I'm anxious to see how these guys are utilized and do these guys flourish in Kansas City or not. Let's go over the score, though, for this Chiefs draft quickly. You get a home run in the 1st round. You get 2 triples the next 2 rounds, and then the rest of the picks in the draft are all triples, which nets you are all doubles, which nets you a doubles bonus. So that's 18 total. You divide by the number of picks, 6, and it's a 3.00, so a 3 right on the head. It's a triple for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. As we continue to motor on, if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and nothing in the National Football League. I will see you guys next time. As always, I just got one question for you. Who's next?